McLean. Dick Coach's Corner.
You're listening to the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast with your host, Andy Plymer.
For someone to explain.
Bringing you up-to-date coaching concepts from the world of rugby. Sharing ideas to make the game better.
Welcome to episode number 32 of the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast. I'm your host, Andy Plymer, and this episode is the first of a three-part series where I chat to the head coaches of pro rugby. For those outside of North America who may not be aware of what pro rugby is the new professional rugby competition that has been set up in the United States, and the inaugural season just wrapped up a couple of months ago. So I reached out to two of the head coaches from San Diego and from Sacramento to have a chat on the show, and that's going to be part one of the series. So I'll be speaking with Ray Egan from San Diego and Luke Gross from Sacramento in this episode, and in due time hoping to speak to the other three head coaches from the other franchises to get a bit of an understanding on what their experiences were like in the first year, what did they learn as coaches, and some advice to pass on to coaches listening to the program. So sit back and enjoy, and as always, any feedback is greatly appreciated, whether it be from iTunes reviews or reaching out to me or the podcast on Twitter. So thanks very much, and we'll see you at the other end. All right, welcome to the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast. Joining me today is Ray Egan. Ray is the Pro Rugby San Diego head coach and originally hails from Ireland, where he developed his rugby at Cresent College School and Young Munsters RFC. He then moved to England to attend Loughborough University. He continued playing there and also took on the university's women's side in a coaching role. After university, he returned to Ireland, began working with the IRFU and Munster as an S&C coach, and later moved into elite player development. He's had coaching roles with Munster and Ireland, underage and senior teams, and began coaching Belmont Shore RFC in California when he moved to the US with his wife. He now heads up Pro Rugby San Diego and is also involved with the Eagle Selects. And it's a pleasure to have him on the show, so welcome, Ray.
Thanks, Andy. Cheers for having me.
Yeah, no worries. All right, so went over most of your stuff there. What's a bit of a description of your time in the US and, you know, before pro rugby came along, and what your observations were of US rugby in general?
I suppose I kind of been like many foreigners. I suppose you're kind of very interested in seeing what it's like over here and kind of looking from afar. But once we actually moved here and I got set up with Belmont Shore, mm-hmm. I was very surprised. That was my first thought, because I suppose naively it was very kind of dismissive of what the American club rugby was like.
Yeah.
So I was actually very surprised at how good it was over here. Mm-hmm. You know, I remember my first year at Belmont, I thought there was 4 players that were ready to go. Ideally, definitely play Pro 12 standard professional in Europe. You know, so
wow,
there was a huge amount of talent here. You know, I just think it's just trying to help develop that talent from here, because it's such a big country. Resources are strained at best. So just trying to make it work here, I think it's harder than most other countries, you know, in terms of long-term player development pathways, you know. So hopefully we're kind of bridging that gap. So when I came over here, it was kind of neat, because it was kind of starting again, right? Taking what you've learned from Ireland, from being a third-rate, I suppose, rugby nation to a tier 1, you know, and how that process works. So, and trying to implement some of the things that I learned over there and try and make them work here, you know. So it was fun. It was challenging, but fun, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It tests out your coaching for sure. You've got to really work hard on that delivery and the relationship piece. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of people come over and dismiss the quality and the work that's already been done. I think that happens everywhere, and it's good that you were surprised in that way. Okay, so you're still involved with the club, but you're also the head.
Yeah, listen, I suppose that's one of the things that you're bred from home. You're with one club, and that's your home club. So I still very involved in Belmont Shore and how they progress. And trying to bring through those youth players through we've got a great youth program that comes through, and I suppose what in my tenure the fruition of it really is kind of Mikey Teo, Joe Tufetti, who've made it through onto the national ranks, and they've come from the Belmont Shore on youth side. So it's nice seeing that kind of correlation and seeing that pathway for young players going right through, and all of a sudden they're now on the national stage. Yeah. So that's very pleasing, and it just kind of shows that that it may not be perfect here in the States, but they do get it right in certain stages. The big challenge, I think, here is coach education.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where we can really create the biggest footprint, right? And that's where we can have the biggest impact amongst our players, because the players are here. It's only a matter of just trying to get that coaching piece right and helping coaches be better, So I think if we can keep striving to work on that, I think the sleeping giant will awake,
Yeah, I think so. That's great. Okay, so you, as you said in the intro, you're the head coach of Pro San Diego. What's a bit of a summary of the team's inaugural season, 2016?
I suppose it's a lot of people were worried were we ever actually going to get to game one. So getting to game one was a huge kind of I suppose it was a milestone, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people maybe thought it may not work and whatever, and I think the league and the coaching staff and the management staff and the players did a great job in getting this thing up and running. I think in terms of how we performed, I think we were lucky at the beginning of our season because we had a lot of home games.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of teams just trying to find their identity. So we just had a little bit of advantage at the beginning of this season. So we got off to a great start, and then probably we waned in the middle due to our own kind of success a little bit, I suppose. We have quite a number of internationals. Domestic and foreign, so we lost maybe 9 players in the middle of the season during that international window.
Yeah.
And we probably lacked a lot of experience in terms of closing out games, and then we were on the road, so we kind of struggled a little bit towards the middle and the end of the season, but I think overall I'm actually quite happy with where we ended up. It was a true reflection of where we were, which is mid-table. We were probably a little bit on the young and inexperienced side, which you can look at it 2 ways. One is you can look at it as a missed opportunity, or the other you can look at it as a great learning curve.
Yeah.
Going forward, as long as we can hold on to those players, gives them great exposure, and they don't have to worry about win-loss isn't so important for me at the beginning, because we're still trying to develop culture and identity and a club ethos, and but I think we definitely laid great groundwork. Myself and the coaches and the management team with me, I think we did a great job in starting it, and I think we've got a good framework to go forward.
Yeah, cool.
So it was a successful season for us. I think could have done a little bit better. We had a few games that were tight.
Yeah.
But I think it's more the experience gained with the players that we had, and the age profile of the players we had is good for us, and bodes well for the future,
For sure. So on the field, what do you think some of the things that went really well for you guys in terms of play?
I think really, again, it comes back to we were trying to build an identity,
Yep.
really, and probably some of the areas that went well for us is basically our unstructured, I suppose our counter-attack ability and and structured play. And a lot of that kind of, came from Rob Hoadley, our backs coach and defence coach. He's really, really, really good in getting us on the front foot with that.
Okay.
Really looking at it as an opportunity. So that really went well this year. We probably got away from it a little bit, and we probably got a little bit structured in the middle. But then we went back to it again. We're a team that basically we're very much a kind of a continuity style. I think that suits us best because we're young. We have a number of sevens players that are involved in our squad as well. So being very structured and very rigid and being very set piece orientated wasn't really going to be our strength. So keeping the ball alive and keeping the ball in hand was something that kind of we were really pleased about it. We should have gone to it a little bit more and trusted a little bit more. But I think it's definitely the way we need to go going forward.
Yeah, and when you realised that was the style that best suited the team, what were some of the ways you worked on that at practice?
I suppose it's just giving the players a little bit of a framework to work within when they do that. Give them kind of like cues, areas in the field when it's kind of a green light to go, and when they need to maybe think a little bit more like field position. Because sometimes you can, it's one of those things that has to be developed over time. So you can't go carte blanche and kind of go, well, right, we're not going to kick the ball. But because that becomes very dangerous, because now all of a sudden you're just putting yourself under pressure if you're in your own 22. So it's just trying to find that mix and giving the guys simple cues to understand when to go and when not to give them maybe more the learning cues that allows them either to kick and pass rather than maybe just run. I think that's probably where you need to go, and then giving them the skills to be able to keep the ball alive. It's a very, I suppose, international rugby is very much of the breakdown, right? Such a huge, important part of the game now. But as we can see, probably with the Southern Hemisphere at the moment, looking maybe at Argentina at a little bit, they're trying to keep the ball in hand. And avoid going to ground at all costs and take the breakdown out of it. And I think that's really the style that needs to evolve because the breakdowns become, and there's such physical athletes out there. So, and I think it's something that could suit our style a little bit better.
Argentina's almost playing like the France of old, Like
exactly, 100%, right? And I think it's hard, right? Because you don't want to lose games, and it's all about performance at that level, and you want to win games, but there's a process to it. But in fairness to Argentina, I think their model over the last 4 or 5 years, it's not by accident they're getting. So, and a couple of weeks ago, they had the All Blacks on the ropes there for about 60 minutes, 50 minutes,
Really good rugby.
So, and I think a lot of people are taking a leaf out of it and kind of go, well, right, we need to play. Right, so the conservative kind of kicking style game necessarily it gets you only so far, But from our point of view, really, it's about, I think, the coaching side for us is understanding the dynamic of our group, understanding our skill level, and then playing to what we have rather than this is the way we're going to play and try and fit pieces into that. I don't think you can do that, because our players are coming from a huge different background. We've got experienced internationals, with 40, 50 caps to players who are just coming out of college or high school. So it's quite a diverse range of players' ability and experience. But what all players like to do is they like to play with ball in hand, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think we just try and feed into that, and that's something definitely our focus is anyway this year.
Great. All right, with that in mind, then you're in the pro rugby off season. I'm sure you got 101 other rugby things on the go though.
Yeah.
What are some areas you're looking at in terms of professional development for you as a coach, and where you want to move to for next year?
Well, I suppose for me as a coach, I was due to go back home to Ireland. So I usually do a kind of a sabbatical back home every year and link up with Munster and Ireland. And And I just suppose is trying to you got to keep your finger on the pulse in terms of what the international game is doing.
Yeah.
I think in America you can kind of get a little bit cocooned over here, because you're not seeing it as much on TV. You don't have easy access to a barrage of games, and particularly at the international or pro level. So I think it's you have to go and you have to immerse yourself, even if it's other codes. You've got to see professional sport. So that was my intent, and then USA asked me to take a selects tour down to Uruguay. Actually leaving the end of this week. So I suppose that's my professional development.
Yeah, for sure.
Is taking that group down to Uruguay, and hopefully, unearthing or giving experience to the next level of players that should figure in 2019, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the next step for me. And then usually in the off season, you try and do as much education work as you can, whether it's watching games, analyzing games in the international, or going to other codes, football, soccer, basketball. You just try and learn from different aspects, right?
Yeah.
Because the minute you think you have it, you don't.
No, you're gone.
So it's and it doesn't matter what level even if it's going watching a high school game, you'll always learn something, right? So. And I think it's important for us as coaches that we try and get out there. So I do a bit of work with the Southern California Griffins as well, and keep my finger in with Belmont. So you're always doing something, Rugby, you're never off in rugby.
No, that's a fact that I know too well for sure. Yeah. All right. So you mentioned the trip to Uruguay there with the USA Select. What's a bit more details there on like who are the athletes? What's the kind of profile?
So the profile of the players is really it's a development select side. Very very little experience in terms of international caps. So there might only be like 4 players that might have international caps at the level. So it's a mix of probably the oldest might be 27.
Okay.
So it's quite young. I'd say the average age of the group might be 23, 24. Inexperienced pro players, collegiate All-Americans, players that are probably the next layer underneath the senior team.
Okay.
The tour is really about giving them exposure at an international level. It's a little bit throwing them in at the deep end a little bit, but allowing them experiences to go and play and not be sitting on benches and stuff like that, so that they have to go and figure it out. And then at the same time also just implement some of the terminology and the systems from the senior side, so that automatically, fingers crossed, we'll hopefully have a handful of players from this tour that'll be involved in November. And it gives them a leg up, and it gives them experience and a little bit of confidence at playing at the next level, that they can go and perform. So that's really what this tour is about. It's about a young management team that's going and learning as well, but it's really about developing players and giving them the experience in a tour setup, and to go and be successful, really, rather than allowing them to fail. That's the wrong way to look at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Be successful, right? And hopefully we find a few players that we didn't really know about, and now give them an opportunity to go and be successful, and put their hand up.
That's great, awesome. All right, so back to you as a coach, and what's your favourite part of the game to coach, and what are some of the ways you like to coach it on the field, on the practice field?
I suppose my background really is development, so the process more than anything else. I would have since coming to the States, I've read a lot of John Wooden's books.
Yeah, right, of course.
So and he talks about the process being his favorite part, and he hated games. Right. I don't hate games, but I like the process. I like training.
Yeah.
I like seeing the skill development. I like understanding how players see the process and succeed in certain things. So I actually get the biggest kick I get out of is maybe seeing a player develop in a particular skill or perform a particular skill that they didn't do before, or that light bulb aha moment that you see them on a field or on a practice field and you get it. That to me is the greatest, is the big kick, that you've just you've gone through the process of it and they get it, and now they understand it, now they perform it. Like, that to me is awesome,
Yeah.
and that's the accolade, because in any team or any professional setup, we shouldn't be talking about coaches. We shouldn't be talking about referees. We should be talking about players. So if we can empower the players, and make them hungry and want to learn, and teach them the right way in terms of giving them the tools and then giving them the experience that they can go and perform them and use those tools and be successful. I think that's the nature of it for me, and I think that's the drug of it for me. It's the small little things, small processes. That watching New Zealanders. There recently, is it Cole, the hooker?
Yeah, Ben Coles. Yeah.
Like, you're looking at his hand skills and him putting away, a 15-meter, 18-meter pass to a lock in the corner.
Yeah. It's like a newborn Keith Wood.
Well, to me, his academy coach, I'm sure, is doing somersaults.
Yeah, absolutely.
At him, because that's what it's about, right? It's being able to do it on the biggest stage, right? Those small little things, and man, that to me, that's the kick, right? It's not scoring the try; it's the pass. The pass was sublime, right? So that's, for me, that's really the what I get on a training paddock for,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all those kind of experiences.
No, that's great. All right, well, these are short and sweet ones. The little pro rugby series we're doing at the podcast here. So we're going to wrap it up with our usual final 4 questions. When you were a kid growing up watching rugby, who was one of your favourite players going around?
So for me, because Ireland used in the 70s, 80s, Ireland were getting their butts kicked at the time. Serge Blanco.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I was just a fan of the flair.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And for a player like him, who just out and out attack, and it was just indicative, I think, of France at the time.
Yeah.
Which is something that a lot of teams would love to play like that. Ball in hand. That continuity style game. So for me, I think Serge Blanco, epitomized that.
Yeah, for sure. And what about now? Who's some of your favourite players going around?
Bowden Barrett, I think, has to be the biggest. Not surprise, but for me, as a player, I was never a big kid. So I just like those kind of smaller kids that are scrappy, and they don't do what it says on the box. So seeing somebody like that be so successful, and with the depth of tens that New Zealand have on offer, Bowden is like, he's just setting the world alight at the moment, and you can see the enjoyment in his face, right? So I think it's just the way he's allowed play, and then the way he plays, I think, with speed and no fear, and let's give it a go. I think he's definitely the most exciting player at the moment.
Yeah, I'd agree. I just love the way he takes the line on. He's just straightens when he needs to, and into some big guys.
It's kind of like what you'd love Quade Cooper to be allowed to do.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And this is just my thought. Like, I think Quade Cooper should start every game. Now, that's not saying anything against any other 10, but you have to allow those players be successful and get things wrong, but you have to let them play, right? I think the recent article about how come New Zealand produce so many 10s is because they've got a bunch of young 10s, and they throw them into their franchise, and they go, here you go sink or swim. Here domestically, I think AJ McGinty is a great is a great find.
Absolutely.
I don't think Tulks gets enough, I suppose, reward for that, because before the World Cup, he just started him for 4 games, going, all right, kid, off you go, sink or swim. And if you get it wrong, you're going to start the next day, and you'll be better for it. And you get it right. And then in the World Cup, he was one of the one of the players that really excelled in the World Cup. So I think, you know, a lot of it's down to coaching, you know, and giving these players the opportunities. But somebody like Bowden Barrett, you know, let him be good. The only way, let him play.
Yeah, get out of the way.
You know, and then get out of the way, and just if he wants to try things, let him go.
Yeah.
You know, because you hear from certain people who are in the know with San Diego that have the ear of Bowden Barrett and stuff like that. They try stuff off the cuff. You know? But it's just that the coaching is done beforehand, the process is right, they see an opportunity, they can communicate, they can all get on the same page, and then their basic fundamental skills are so good that they can execute, right? So, but he's definitely, for me, the most exciting player at the moment.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's outstanding. All right, on the coaches now. Who's one of your favourite, I suppose, elite or high-profile coaches going around?
Probably at the moment, well, Graham Henry would have been a big, I suppose, hero of mine.
Yeah.
And namely because I suppose a good few years ago when I was with the Munster Academy, he came. The All Blacks came to Limerick to train against the academy in preparation for Wales.
Right.
So I got to spend a good bit of time with him, just on how he coached and how he empowered the players a little bit. So I was a big fan of just, hey, we just give them the fundamental skills. We give them the framework of where we want to play and how we want to play, and we just step back. And we only, you know, it was very kind of enlightening to me, because you sometimes get caught up in the system and the play calling and all that, and it shouldn't be about that, you know. And he had a very simple way of approaching internationals. So that year, their backs had 3 set piece moves total for an autumn tour.
That's great.
And they just have different variations of it, but it's 3 moves. So to me, it kind of blew my mind a little bit, because at that time in Munster, we had 13 moves,
Yeah.
right? So it really kind of, you know, and that's where I like it. It's just the simplicity. Let's go do a small few things, but let's do them really well, right? And then allow players to decision make based off what they see. So that it really kind of molded me in how I was going to coach from that day on. So that would have been on the skills side, and then on a management side would have been a guy called Declan Kidney.
Yeah, of course.
So I coached Munster and Ireland, and he was probably one of the best man managers I've ever come across. So those two probably shaped the most, you know, in terms of who I like. I think both of them are retired now, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
so my age.
Still lessons to learn, though, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, and then last question: who's someone in your community who's, you know, not the profile of those two giants, but doing really good work for the development of young players in your area?
I think there's a good few around Southern Cal around here. I think probably he comes from my own club, a guy called Peter Seo.
Okay.
So he's an ex-player, played sevens with the US, but he looks after the sevens program with Belmont Shore. But he's a guy that I think has got a huge future in coaching if he keeps pursuing it, you know. Just again because of the way he played himself, which was that very open style, but still very smart, understanding of the basic fundamentals and doing them really well. And then being able to talk to young players and get them motivated and get them playing. So Peter obviously was fairly successful in the 7s and 15s himself, and now he's just translating it to kids. And again, he's got a good way about him. There's no barking, there's no shouting, there's no, you know, it's just simple things done really well. And I think he's got a great future going forward. Hopefully he gets opportunities to go on a little bit higher than club, you know.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks very much for giving up your time to come on the show and chat pro rugby. And I think it's really gonna blow up this year. Second year in, I think It's laid down the groundwork last year, and this year I think it's really going to take off. So I'm really excited for it to start again. So
listen, we all just need to. We've learned a lot, so it's just about now just learning and moving on and get stuck into year two, because the players are here,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
We need a vehicle for them,
Yeah, no, it's exciting times for sure for USA Rugby, and I tune into as many games as I can, and I'll definitely be doing the same for season 2. So yeah, all the best, and thanks again for coming on the show. Cheers,
Andy, and you're welcome in San Diego anytime.
Oh, I'd love to go. You never know, I might drop in someday.
Yeah,
perfect. All right, cheers, Ray.
Thank you.
See ya. All right, welcome to the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast. I'm your host, Andy Plimer, and joining me today is Luke Gross. Along with being married with 3 boys, Luke is the head coach of the Sacramento Express Pro Rugby team and took that position on after 7 years working with USA Rugby in numerous roles. Luke arrived relatively late to the game of rugby at age 24 after a university basketball career, and then went on to be awarded 62 caps for the United States, which included 3 World Cups and a 12-year professional career in Europe. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, Luke, so welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, cheers. All right, so that's a pretty interesting lead up to your rugby career, that you started playing basketball and then came to the game pretty late. What's a bit more about your backstory there, and then some of your experiences playing in the US and overseas as well?
I picked it up in grad school. I started grad school a little late, and there was only really bigger properties left to rent. Yeah. So I thought I'd sublease some rooms out, and so be it. A bunch of rugby boys came to live with me at Marshall University, and
nice.
Never looked back after that. So overseas, was at Harlequins for a couple of years. Went over to Italy for a couple of years. Really enjoyed that. Then in Connecticut in Wales before they went provincial.
Yeah.
And then up to Yorkshire, Rotherham when they were in the Premiership.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then to Newcastle to finish off my Premiership days. And then I went down to Doncaster in the first division and was playing with Doncaster for a little while.
Oh, great! And I bet those new roommates, their eyes lit up when they walked in and saw you, and realised they'd found their new second row for the club.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect.
It was good. It was good fun. A bunch of really good young men. A couple of the boys really took me under their wings.
Yeah.
We didn't really have a coach. We had a gentleman who had been to England named Mark Hermazinski, who was a med student.
Right.
And because he went to England, it qualified him as our coach.
Yeah, of course.
There you go.
All right. So first year of pro rugby this year, and we're doing a bit of a series on all the coaches on the show here. And what for you for Sacramento? What's a bit of a summary of the team's 2016 season?
Because everything was put together there at that last minute.
Yeah,
it seemed like it. That we kind of had to hit the ground running.
Yeah,
we really focused on fitness and basic skills.
Yeah,
and team patterns, defensively and attack.
Yeah.
So that first month was, get to know your players, get a lot of systems in, and get fit. And then we started out. I felt we got the fitness side of it right. We hit the ground running against San Francisco and did really well. We played within our systems of play. We were very aggressive, and our fitness came through in the end of the game. A couple games in, then we lost our number 10 through injury.
Yeah, that's difficult.
It really hurt us. And he was really, we had a couple of younger 10s we could have put in, but we really, really struggled at that stage at 10 for the most part of the season. I felt a lot of the games we were in, and it could have gone either way as the season went on. Yeah, it was a tough one for us. We were one of the few teams I felt that continually improved throughout the season.
Yeah.
But we just couldn't seem to get those wins. Something would go wrong, get a red card here, or an injury halfway through a game, or just just one of those seasons, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and from that, you must have learned a bunch from that. What do you think some of the biggest lessons were from your season?
You know, we had some really good takeaways for the season. We learned that keeping it simple is key. When we first started, we tried to put a defensive system in that was a little complicated, and halfway through the season, we had a month break. And at that stage, I decided that we should change our defense to a simpler system, and it kind of paid off for us a little bit. So number one, keep it simple. Fitness, you can never be too fit, and it's a continual improvement. And the way seasons work, a lot of it's on the boys to do it, meaning when they're in the gym, they have got to push themselves hard enough to do it. So fitness is another thing. You can never be too fit.
Yeah. And
then basic fundamentals. That first month, we should have probably backed off on some of our patterns and focused a lot more on fundamentals. It doesn't matter what good systems of play, if defense or attack you have, if you can't pass and catch or you can't make the tackle, you know, that's key. Those were some key things that I took away this season.
Yeah, and your system's only good as those individual skills, right? And,
Yeah,
and I think that's a sign of a good coach too. I reckon that you can put your hand up and say, "Hey, we started a bit too complex. Let's dial it back and let's go to a more simplistic defensive pattern."
Yeah, it was, and I had a couple of very good assistant coaches in Kevin Battle and Freddie Watichi.
Right.
Have full respect for them. They constantly been in my ear about how to improve not only myself but the team. And we had a really good staff. That was probably one of our strengths. Was our staff.
Yeah.
Those two gentlemen, you know, KB's organization and his great rugby mind, and then Freddie, always calm, you know, and the way he looks at things. It's a different way of looking at things, and it just kind of brought our staff together pretty strong.
Yeah, and that's probably a good segue into my next question, just areas that went really well for you this season, you think, and that you'd like to kind of replicate next year.
Some of the things that went well, we continue to improve over the season. That's players and staff.
Yeah.
From that first training session all the way to the last game, we all walked away physically better rugby players, better understanding. You know, that's one thing I have to take my hat off to. You know, that was a big part of it, and everybody had that mindset, that learning mindset. Like I said, I think we started out pretty fit in the season, so I felt we had that first part of the season right, fitness to strength ratio. We had a really good player leadership group. You know, if you don't have a good leadership group, it's hard to get a mentality into a team, a workman's mentality.
Yeah.
And we had some really good leaders on that team. I felt as a coaching staff, we gave them the freedom to really implement it, you know, which really helps. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and you know, that's so key, that leadership piece, because at the end of the day, you're on the sidelines, you're not on the field with them, so you've got to hand that over to the players as soon as it starts.
Yeah. It's at the end of the day, it's their team, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're just help organizing it. Basically.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so you're at the end of the season now. You're in the off season for pro rugby. Any areas in particular are you focusing on for professional development moving forward?
Defense. I'm trying to get a better understanding of defensive patterns and things.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's probably my biggest one. If the staff stays the same, which it should.
Yeah.
We have Kevin Battle, who's our TAC coach, and he does a tremendous job with that. And we had Freddie Watichi's doing skills and backs.
Right.
I had forwards and defense, and I felt jet gone overhead.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Hold on. Let that pass. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, the defensive area, I call it attack without the ball. So it's really interesting to me on the different patterns and stuff. But you know, I like the learning I took from the other season. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for different ways to teach that very simple defense and maybe add a couple of little twists to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think there's some good stuff going around now. It's become a real focus in world rugby is that structured defense, and you look at what England did to Australia with you know, Paul Gustard's work and things like that. There's some great defensive coaches around for sure.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. And what about coaching in general? What's your favourite part of the game to coach, and what are some of the ways that you like to do it specifically?
Being a big forward,
Yeah.
I like set pieces, as always.
Of course.
It's kind of like, to me, it's taking a group of guys and making them work as one.
Yeah.
And then it's those chess pieces, how to manipulate each one to do a certain role in that unit to manipulate the D. It's such a fascinating part of the game. Scrums or angles and power and force and all that, and then the lineouts. I call it a dance.
Yeah,
you got to move together and synchronize your movements to ultimately come up with the ball. Some of the how I started the season with the boys, we touched on basics, basic lifting, basic profiles and stuff, and we had such a plethora of experience within the pack that I let the boys slowly take it over, and by mid-season they were running it.
Yeah, that's
right. That's kind of how we ran the team. The boys ended up running the trainings a lot of times. We would guide it, but they would run it. I say that's probably one of the most important things when it comes to team. Anyway, I'm getting off track here a little bit, going back to the set piece and how
that's fine. Yeah,
some of the different things. You start it with basic games and stuff, and build from there, all fundamentally based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and that's great. Going back to what you said there, I think you see the art of coaching's developed a lot since probably when you were playing professionally to now. That move to a less authoritarian head coach to someone who's more a facilitator than a fountain of knowledge.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. All right. Well, these are pretty short interviews for the Pro Rugby series. So we always end the show with the same final 4 questions. When you were a kid growing up, well, you probably had a few favourite basketball players there. So who was your favourite rugby player when you just started playing rugby, and maybe throw in a favourite basketball player there as well?
So basketball player was Larry Bird.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, and I like that competitiveness between him and Magic. It was it was great.
Yeah.
Being an Indiana boy too.
Yeah.
So
right.
Larry
Okay.
Bird.
All
right. And then rugby, John Eel.
Yeah.
And John, being an Aussie man, Ely.
Champion.
He's tremendous. How many second rows kicking for goal? Huh?
No, not many. To win a Tri Nations as well.
I know.
As well. It's awesome. Yeah.
Such a tremendous athlete, both on and off the field. A good man.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you would have crossed paths in World Cups with John Eales? Or he would have retired when you started with the...
Yeah, he retired. He wasn't in the 99, was he?
He was. Yeah, he was the captain. He was captain of the 99.
Yeah, he didn't play against us. That's what it was.
Okay, right. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, he's a legend. He's definitely on my All-Star Australian 15 for sure. As captain as well.
Yeah.
All right, and what about players now on the international circuit? Any players that you like watching and like what they're doing?
There's a lot of good players out there.
Yeah.
They're all tremendous in their own right, and I tend to not have favorites.
Yeah.
I'll have a favorite for a match, but that's about it. I don't. Yeah.
No, fair enough, and it's just more the game that you love. Yeah, for sure. Okay, and what about coaches? Coaches with a high profile. Any particular coaches that you respect what they've done or are doing?
One of my first coaches, really, Dick Best. He was the Harlequin, former English coach. He was the Harlequins then. And when I first started, my knowledge of the game was very limited. And Coach Best kind of took me and put me in a box. And he only gave me a couple things to do. So lineouts, be aggressive, get the ball, you run forward. Anybody run at you, you tackle him. That's what he gave me. It kept me from thinking too much. And if a newer player, you think too much, you really don't accomplish anything, and you don't use your athleticism because you're constantly thinking, stuff like that. And he was really good about drip feeding me stuff to keep me focused and keep me competitive on the field and playing. So it was really good. So Dick Best.
Yeah, that's great advice too. I think as coaches, we love the game so much. really passionate about passing on our knowledge, and that can get away from any coach at times, and you can try and get it all, coach the entire game of rugby in one session, and that's not doing the athletes a lot of good. So that's a good message there for sure.
Yeah.
It's
very
cool. Okay, and then last question: who's someone local or a group in your region that's doing a good job for the grassroots kind of scene?
You can't really pick out one individual coach. There's so many good young coaches out there that are dedicating their time and their resources and everything to developing rugby here in the U.S. or in North America. Hats off to those guys. They're not being paid for it. It's time away from their family, their friends, and all that, but they love it and they're continually developing it. And for any rugby nation, they have it right. They start at the base, the youth, and they build up from there. In North America, we're just now starting to get it. Which is good. So hats off to all those coaches.
That's great. And I think pro rugby is going to be huge for that side of things. Like grassroots rugby in Sacramento must be, really starting to go on the up as a result of the program.
SAC has a huge youth base. It's one of the biggest in the country.
Right, really.
It's a bunch of different clubs, high school teams, and all that. So we're actually lucky to be in this area. I feel really lucky to be based here.
That's great. Cool. All right, well, that comes to the end of the show, and just want to say thanks very much, Luke, for giving up your time to come on the show and talk about Sacramento, and I want to wish you all the best for next season, and I'm sure a bunch of people, even more than the 2016 season, are going to be tuning in and watching pro rugby grow and develop. So thanks very much again for your time.
Thank you. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no worries. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review via iTunes and keep listening for the next episode. You can also follow us on Twitter at RugbyCoachSCNR or via the website at therugbycoachescorner.com. Until next time, keep sharing ideas to make the game better.